creepy and cool TikToks that will blow your mind. Are you ready? Are you ready? Let's go!
Disclaimer: this video is for entertainment purposes only. Please do your own research, as these clips haven't been fact-checked.
Dogs in Chernobyl are now turning blue, and no one really knows why. Now, what you are looking at is footage captured by an organization that is dedicated to caring for the abandoned pets of Chernobyl. In fact, the ones you're seeing here are likely the descendants of the dogs left behind by the families in the 1986 nuclear disaster. But if the mutant wolves that were discovered last year to have developed genomes resilient to cancer wasn't crazy enough, recently 3 dogs were spotted that had turned almost completely blue. Now, the organization said that this was a complete mystery, but they did speculate on their Instagram saying that it was most likely them getting into some sort of chemicals. They're currently trying to catch them to investigate, so I'll keep you guys updated.
I think I have a pretty good idea why.
Did you know that wood is the rarest material in the universe? Most people think the rarest material would be gold or maybe diamonds, but that's absolutely not true, because gold and diamond is so common that it could be found anywhere in the universe. There's even entire planets that are made entirely of gold and diamond. But here's the strangest part. If you traveled the entire universe at the speed of light, you would be shocked how much gold and diamond there is. But it would be a miracle if you came across any wood. That's because wood comes from life. And even with our advanced technology, we still don't know any other planet in the entire universe that would have wood. Black holes can bend space-time. Wormholes can shrink distances. Supernovas could scatter elements across galaxies. But none of these cosmic forces can create a singular tree. It's so strange that the wooden chair you're sitting on or the pencil on your desk is rarer than diamonds and is actually one of the rarest material in the entire universe.
I mean, have you been traveling to the universe to know that? Oh, this is scary, folks. Oh.
Heidi right here. Heidi right here.
That's crazy. Oh. Man, I rebuke that in the name of Jesus. Hey, by the way, that's her when she takes off the Heidi Klum costume.
Did you know about the man who died on his own front porch and was left there for days because everyone thought he was a Halloween prop?
That's got to be a prop, right? It's way too real.
This was in Marina del Rey, California. His name was Mateo Zayed, a 75-year-old man who felt like the world had erased him. His wife was gone. His savings were gone. And worst of all, no one even noticed he existed anymore. So, in late October of 2009, Mateo made a decision. He dressed in his usual cardigan, sat down in his favorite old rocking chair on the porch, right beside the pumpkin decorations, and with one silent breath pulled the trigger. He died right there, in plain sight, on a busy street, and nobody reacted. In fact, they admired it. The mailman stepped over the blood to deliver letters. Teenagers dared each other. Touch it, if you're not scared. Neighbors literally said things like, damn, Mateo really went all in on Halloween this year. 1 day passed, then 3, then 5. People posed for selfies. The illusion was perfect. Too perfect, because our brains love context. Halloween decor. Must be fake, can't be real. But then, November arrived. The fake cobwebs didn't come down, and something new arrived instead, the smell. So strong joggers crossed the street mid-run. A neighbor finally walked closer. No binoculars, no mystery, just flies. And in a single heartbeat, the city realized, Mateo Zayed wasn't decoration. He was a man screaming for the world's attention, even in death.
Poor Mateo.
Jack the Ripper, the mysterious serial killer whose identity has long remained a mystery.
DNA from a shawl recovered at the scene of one of his crimes has incredibly found a 100% match.
The Jack the Ripper case is officially closed. That's not clickbait, it's a scientific fact. After 137 years, DNA evidence has confirmed his identity. We are going to reveal the name, the science, and the story. But what nobody tells you is how this man, a known and violent individual, was allowed to roam free and how the police knew about him. The evidence points to one person, and it's not who you think. This changes the entire legend. The 137-year-old clue. The story of the final reveal begins with a shawl said to have been found at the scene of the 4th slaying Catherine Eddowes. For decades, this artifact was passed down, dismissed by many as a fake. You see, it was just one of many so-called Ripper items floating around. But in 2007, an author and amateur sleuth named Russell Edwards bought it at an auction. He was convinced it was real, and he was willing to bet his reputation on one final, desperate attempt to solve the case using technology the Victorian police could only dream of. Edwards tracked down Dr. Jari Louhelainen, a world-renowned expert in genetic analysis from old, degraded samples. This wasn't like a fresh TV crime show. This was a piece of silk that was over 120 years old, contaminated by countless hands, by time, and by the elements. Getting anything from it would be a miracle. Dr. Louhelainen got to work. He and his team focused on the stains. Using advanced techniques, they carefully extracted the genetic material that was left. They were looking for something called mitochondrial DNA, or mtDNA. Here's what you need to know about mtDNA. Unlike regular DNA, which is a mix from both parents, you only get mtDNA from your mother. And she gets it from her mother, and so on, passed down in an unbroken female line for thousands of years. It's tough, it lasts a long time, and it's the perfect genetic time traveler. The first test was to see if the shawl was even real. The team found a living descendant of Catherine Eddowes' sister. They took a sample and compared it to the DNA from the bloodstains on the shawl. It was a perfect match. The shawl was real. It had been at the scene, soaked in the victim's blood. But then they found something else. Mixed in with the victim's DNA were other trace samples, including semen. This was it. This was the perpetrator's genetic signature. The team found a living female line descendant of a suspect's sister and tested her. Again, it was a match. After 137 years, the science pointed to one man. And it's not who you think. It wasn't a prince. It wasn't a doctor. It wasn't a famous artist. His name was Aaron Kosminski. The name might not ring a bell, but to the police in 1888, it was at the top of their list. This wasn't a new suspect. This was the man they always thought it was. Aaron Kosminski was a Polish immigrant who had fled to London. He worked as a hairdresser in Whitechapel, the very heart of the terror. He was known to be mentally unwell, a man plagued by dark visions and violent rages. What many overlooked is that the top cops of the day practically shouted his name. Chief Constable Melville McNayton wrote a famous memo in 1894 that named Kosminski as a primary suspect. He described him as a man who had a strong homicidal tendency. But the most chilling evidence comes from Chief Inspector Donald Swanson. Swanson was the man who oversaw the entire investigation. He was there on the ground every single day. Years later, he got a copy of his boss's memoirs. In the margin of the book, right next to the section about the Ripper, Swanson scribbled a note. He wrote that the perpetrator was Kosminski, the man who was sent to an asylum and perished there. This is a bombshell. The officer in charge of the case knew his name. Kosminski lived right in the middle of the slaying locations. He was known to be violent. And then in 1891, his family finally had him committed to an asylum where he stayed for the rest of his life. And when did the Jack the Ripper slaying stop? Right when Kosminski was taken off the streets. The DNA, the timeline, and the...
So it's not, what's his name? Stefan Salvatore?
This footage
I guess
accidentally captured by a photography enthusiast, but everyone who's seen it says the same thing. It's the creepiest, most unsettling video of the year. That night, he took his drone deep into a remote mountain range just to test out the thermal imaging mode. At first, everything looked normal until he turned his camera toward a cliff. There he saw 9 clear human figures standing in a circle at 3:30 in the morning as if performing some kind of ritual. He zoomed in and realized one of them was dragging a long human-shaped bag away.
All right, check this out, TikTok. I need help. I don't know what's happening. I am in Sarasota, Florida, Bradenton, one of those, and driving Uber, and I just dropped off this teen writer at this barbershop here. And literally 2 minutes later, I was driving around looking for a place to park, and I thought, oh well, there was a parking in front of the barbershop. Let me just go park there, wait for a ride. And so I drive back up, and as I'm pulling in this spot, like the front of my car, let me show y'all. The front of my car is looking through this window. The back, pretty much right here, is the door, right? So as I'm getting out, because I had another ride at the same location. I'm like, oh, cool, I'm picking somebody leaving here. But the pin was weird, but that's a whole nother thing. It was a scam. That's a whole nother story. But so I'm trying to contact the writer, and I'm like, oh, I'm out here, but your pin is weird, but this is where I'm picking you up. I get out, and I'm looking, as I'm sitting, before I get out, I'm sitting in my car, and I look through the window, this window right here, and the teen that I just dropped off was sitting in the chair. He sat in the chair. There were other people in there. He was talking to, I guess, the barber. He took off his hat like he was getting ready to get his hair cut. And I'm like, okay, let me go walk inside and see if this next ride is inside. And I get to the door and I see like we are closed. So I'm like, oh, okay, that must have been like their last customer. But then I walk back over to the window here where I was just literally, I walked from there to there and I walked back to the window to see if I get somebody's attention. Maybe the person is inside. Just the lights are off. There's nobody in here. There's nothing happening. I don't understand. Like, I don't understand. Is there a portal that I just went into or something? Weird AF. And then these people with their Uber scams talking about, anyway, that's another video, I guess. Are there portals in Sarasota, Florida too? I mean, it is Florida, so I don't know.
So you found a secret location that wasn't supposed to be exposed? Be careful, sir.
Remember this guy who calls himself a time traveler? He says he's in the year 2027, and every day he posts videos that he claims prove it. In one of them, he casually walks around the Oval Office in the White House. No guards, no people, nothing. And we all know the White House is one of the most protected places on Earth. His name is Javier, and according to him, the world has already ended, and he's the only survivor. But recently, he posted his most terrifying video yet. He finally revealed the exact date of our end. He claims that in November this year, the world as we know it will be over. And here's where it gets even creepier. Scientists say an unknown 24-kilometer-long object is currently heading toward Earth. It will arrive on November 27th. Javier warns that this thing is definitely not friendly. He even posted real footage showing what awaits us in November. Follow me to see more creepy and mysterious videos just like this one.
So the war has ended, but the internet is still up and running? All right.
Left my soul on this one. I know it sounds weird, but you leave your soul or something like this.
The video you just saw is Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson practically admitting he might have sold his soul. Don't you find it strange that at the end of the 90s he was nobody? He was a broke wrestler, no contracts, nothing that could lead him to success. Then, overnight, his career exploded. He ended up in the WWE, in Hollywood, all that with millions of fans. It straight up looks like a miracle. Except the video you just saw confirms the whispers that have followed his image. The Rock's career wasn't due to luck, but to a pact. They say he was offered this price: 20 years of glory, of strength, of muscle, and 20 years without a single scandal. Thanks to that, he became the symbol of The Rock. His body looked superhuman, his endurance almost unreal, but no one ever gives anything for free. Someone always comes back to collect. And so this year, everything changed for him. Remember, he made a frightening public appearance, looking exhausted, thinner, stripped of the mask that defined his whole persona. All his fans were shocked. But wait, the most shocking part is that according to the contract, after his 20th year, he has to give back everything he was given. And strangely enough, it's been exactly 20 years since we started to know him. Look at what he looks like today, and you won't believe it. So is the video I showed you proof of all this? Is it simply age and stress, or has the terrible payment for his pact already begun?
He actually looks very soulless.
So y'all are just now finding out that those hatch machines are demonic? Let me tell you what happened to me. I had a very similar experience to that lady on here who told her story. I was sleeping one night, I could hear the white noise happening, and all of a sudden, I started hearing talking. Now that lady on here said that she heard a chitter chatter. What I heard, I would describe more along the lines of a jibber jabber, like a demonic jibber jabber. So I ripped that thing out of the wall, drug it outside, and I rebuked it with my 12 gauge. My wife was pissed. Apparently, those things cost a lot of money. But I do not care. I am not having that demonic nonsense in my house. And this is not my first time battling demonic forces. Okay, I have been in the throes of spiritual warfare for as long as I can remember. A couple years ago, I was hunting sitting up in a deer stand. I shot a Baphomet in its hindquarters. By the time I tracked it down, it had shapeshifted back into my neighbor's dog. Got an Amazon Echo last year for Christmas. I had to rebuke that thing because within 3 days, it had fallen in love with me. For my birthday, I had to rebuke the Apple Watch my wife bought me because I found out it was made with fallen angel tech. I rebuked my wife's Himalayan salt lamp when I found out that Himalayan salt is made from the expired, decomposed carcasses of biblical giants. And just a few days ago, I rebuked my antipsychotic medication down the toilet because it was prohibiting me from receiving downloads from outside the Matrix. Now, if you'll excuse me, I've got a bidet. What needs rebuking?
What is a hatch machine, anyone? Please drop a comment.
This clown showed up in the middle of the night and ended up being a real hero. A video that was supposed to be just another prank suddenly captured a tense moment right when a crime was about to happen. It was an almost empty subway station. A girl was standing alone on the platform, and at some point, 3 unfamiliar men started moving toward her. At first, it looked like they were just waiting for a train, but in reality, they had a different plan. And none of them had any idea she was part of a prank and that a hidden camera was filming her. But then the crew felt something was off. The camera operator whispered, "What do these guys want?" That wasn't in the script. The girl was clearly scared, slowly stood up, and started edging farther away from the station area. One of the sketchy guys headed after her, and that's where it gets wild. Out of nowhere, a creepy clown stepped into frame, holding 2 baseball bats. He planted himself in front of the guy and just stared him down. That's when the men really panicked and bolted, like they'd just seen the devil himself. A lot of people assumed it was all staged, but even the creators of the video confirmed it was real and that the girl was genuinely in danger.
God timing is impeccable.
For 2,000 years, an entire village in China used what they thought were bottomless ponds. They were wrong. What lay beneath would rewrite everything we know about ancient civilizations. In the early morning of June 18th, 1992, a man named Wu Anai was staring into the dark water of his local pond. But this wasn't just any pond. It was actually one of 5. These rectangular bodies of water had existed in Wu Anai's village of Xian Beikun for as long as anyone could remember. And at that time, these ponds had proven to be something of a mystery to everyone in town. The children had been warned away from them since before his grandfather's time, though the warnings never explained exactly why. Adults would just shake their heads and change the subject when asked about it. Wu Anai had tried plenty of times as a boy, but nobody ever gave him a straight answer. Because these ponds scattered throughout this small farming community in Zhejiang province in China were locally famous for being bottomless. No matter how hard they tried, no one had ever managed to determine just how deep they went. These ponds became a source of both practical use and persistent mystery for generations. Wu had lived in Xian Beikun his entire life, and like everybody else there, he had grown up fishing and collecting water from them. But also, like everyone else, he had always wondered just how deep they really were. He was going to find out what was at the bottom. From time to time, curious villagers would take out these long bamboo poles and probe as deep as they could to try and measure the depth, but they never could. They would just push the poles down until the entire length disappeared beneath the surface, yet they never felt the poles hit the bottom, and the ends always came up clean.
Guys, this is massive. What you are looking at is believed to be the first recorded sighting in history of a leucistic Iberian lynx. Photographer Angel Hidalgo captured this footage somewhere in the Jaén Mountains in Spain, but the exact location is being kept a secret to protect it. Now, at first, some were skeptical if this actually was a leucistic Iberian lynx, but local media report after analysis of the images by specialists from the Lynx Project, it has been confirmed that this is a leucistic specimen and the first officially documented in Spain and possibly the entire world. You are witnessing history right here. Not only is the Iberian lynx extremely rare with only about 2,000 in existence, but to see one that is also leucistic, which means it's got a white coat, is almost mythical.
All right.
We are co-creating with God. We are one with Source. I don't care what anybody says, and I'm going to tell you why. I just read a study on campus, and I have to talk about this because this is so important. Some of you have heard of the study with cats. The cats were from birth raised in dark black rooms, but for a few hours a day, they took 2 groups of cats and separated them. One group of cats was put in a room for a few hours with horizontal lines, and the other group of cats was put into rooms with vertical lines. The group of cats, as they were raised and they were exposed to real world. They were led into the real world. The group of cats that were exposed to the vertical lines could not see horizontal lines. So objects, horizontal objects, okay? So what this means is the vertical objects they could see, but they would not be able to perch themselves up on couches or tables or anything horizontal because they quite literally couldn't see it. Vice versa, the cats that were exposed to the horizontal lines were running into table legs and they were hitting vertical objects because they could not see it even though it was there. This is us. This is what's happening to us. This is what has happened to all of us. I need somebody to fucking hear this. When we are raised, we are like a sponge from 0 to 7. We're 0 to 7. We're absorbing everything within us, okay? All of it's being pushed inside of us. Ages 7 to 12, it's a little more, the windows are closing, things are shutting. By the age of 13, 14, we're done. Whatever has been programmed in us is essentially what's there, aside from traumas, heavy repetition, emotion. This is great news because our brains are malleable, which means we can change this. But it takes work, it takes time. But if you were exposed to an environment that talked poorly about money, that had a bad relationship with money, you quite literally will only see that outside of you because that's what's being filtered outside of you because that's what you were raised in. Holy shit. This is why I talk about, like when I talk about affirmations, my one buddy went in depth on this, but when you can say, if you say, I am rich, I am whatever, 1,000,000 times a day, your brain can logically counter that and say, no, you're not, because you don't have evidence for it. But the moment that you can continuously say, why does money keep showing up for me? Why do opportunities keep presenting themselves to me? Why? And you ask it that way, your reticular activating system begins to filter itself so that you can start to see it. Motherfucker. This has been in front of my face for years. I've been studying it for years, and this is what I mean by consciousness. You won't see it if you're not there. That's why you can't push it on people. It makes fucking sense because if a person wasn't raised to see it, they have no idea it's there. Oh my God, you guys, I have to start talking about this tomorrow. I'm going to start breaking down the amygdala, the basal ganglia, the prefrontal cortex, because these things like fear, the amygdala, it starts shooting off, bam, bam, bam. And we think it's a bad thing, but growth on the other side of fear is an amazing thing, because then when we can take a moment of pause and we can name our fear and we can look at our fear, that kicks in our prefrontal cortex and it quiets the amygdala. And it doesn't mean that the fear is gone. It just means that we can look at it from a different perspective. Bitch, I'm shitting myself. Oh my gosh. We are creating our realities with God. I don't care what anybody says. Holy.
Wow, I love her energy. Look up the double slit experiment.
Okay, not necessarily going to go page by page. I did post a link where y'all can read it for free. It's on archive.org. It's there. Shockingly, surprisingly, it's there. I can't believe it's there because the kind of tea it spills, but it is there. But I want to tell you this part. This is talking about the first Rothschild. He's explaining how the Rothschild have all the money and they have all control. And they're explaining the first one. Well, the first Rothschild became friends with some guy, Frederick Landgrave Frederick II, whose fortune was then valued at 70 to 100 million florins, an unheard of figure in those times. Okay, so this was the richest guy around when the first Rothschild when the inception of the Rothschild family occurred. And the first Rothschild made contact with this rich guy. And this guy says, guys, y'all, listen, you cannot make this shit up.
What?
Frederick, hearing from this one guy that they both know about the ability and the unscrupulousness of Amschel, that's the first Rothschild, became interested in procuring a cursed soul or a man of straw for all his doubtful operations.
Straw man.
Okay, you know what this means. Okay, in case you missed it. He means I need a little sleaze bag to do my sleazy shit. Okay, I need a guy that doesn't have a soul. But I think it means more than that, because these people have had amounts of power and control that seems unhumanly, right? It seems like no human can have that much power and control. And I've been saying they're not human. And then that passage I read earlier, they were like, they're others. They're some kind of others. Okay. Well, I think this first Amschel Rothschild, he needed to be procured. This guy procured him to be a cursed soul or a man of straw. If you know anything about Golem magic, then if you know about golem magic and this kind of magic that they do, and I'm careful about the words I'm using, the magic that they do, which I have taken the time to educate myself on, the magic that these types of people do, they use golem magic. And I've done work with clients who have had death markers and markers that markers running along their arterial systems, little tags. They look like little plates or coins, like geometric coins running along their energy bodies, that give these individuals a way to tap in and control that person. I had a client one time, she had a lot of dealings in Hollywood with a lot of the business people in Hollywood. And in fact, she got rowdy with me. This woman got rowdy with me because when I did her scan, I saw these markers all over her, these golem death markers. And she goes, oh, no, I've had those removed. And I was like, Boo Bear, sweet baby, how did I see them then if they were removed? Why do I see them? No, you're seeing the remnants of them. Sweet baby Jane, I'm telling you, you've got these weird ass seals all over your energy body because somebody who practices this kind of magic of this ilk, of this type of person, has marked you as a golem type person, and they're sending signals and controlling you from time to time. This Amshel guy, I think, was a golem creation by this guy. And then what we've been seeing going forward has been variations of golems inhabiting bodies. And then the way that they create and maintain the bodies would be another conversation.
So basically, they partner with demons?
One night. That's how long locals say it took to build this place. Not by humans, but by ancient beings and jinns. According to legend, this colossal stepwell appeared overnight, carved into the earth by powers beyond our understanding. And when you see it, you might start to believe them. Over 1,100 years old, Chand Baori in Rajasthan, India, is older than the Taj Mahal. It descends 13 stories into the ground, with more than 3,500 perfectly symmetrical steps leading to the water below. Every angle, every line, impossibly precise, as if drawn by a machine long before machines existed. Even modern architects still wonder how such perfection was achieved in the 9th century. Maybe the locals aren't wrong after all. Maybe what we call myth was simply technology or willpower that we no longer...
Laser carving, then 3D? What do you think?
Again, they say this is extremely haunted. We have talked about haunted buildings in the past episodes. And for anyone new here, I'm not saying there isn't such thing as paranormal activity. But I do think that when the narrative begins to say that these specific buildings that we're researching have hauntings, I think it's planned and scripted to keep people away and so that people don't go investigate. And that's why we're going to do the complete opposite and investigate. I'm here to see what's going on. The Egyptian-style theaters are based on the traditional and historic design elements of ancient Egypt, so they say. Before we go any further, I want to make it clear that my opinion of this place is that it is not built in just 1 year in 1928. This wouldn't be built in 1 year today, 100 years later. And that's just the tip of the evidence. They give us an architect. But remember, architects are not builders. They are not construction companies. They draw on paper in the 1920s. They do not construct buildings in 1 year. Who was the construction company? How many men did they need to construct this place? If we are not asking these questions, we will never find the answers. So let's do a quick recap. A 1,430-seat auditorium built in 1 year in 1928. And after nearly 100 years, it is still the town's largest auditorium. No construction company named, and it's haunted. Let's continue. So who is this incredible architect, Elmer F. Burns? He must have an incredible resume and tons of great accomplishments, constructing huge auditoriums in 1 year in 1928. Oh, there's nothing? All right, let's dig a little deeper on this guy.
Okay, they got a channel on YouTube. It's called My Lunch Break. Subscribe to him. It's good.
This legit is maybe the most mind-blowing Bible fact I've ever learned in my entire life. I've been waiting 6 years to get this out because it never fits in a sermon. Jesus ascended into heaven when he was standing on, in Acts chapter 1, the Mount of Olives. And he specifically said in Acts chapter 1, he said, I'm going to come in the exact same way that I go. And there are other prophecies, I'm going to read them here in a second, that specifically make it sound like it's clear when Jesus returns and he he descends, he's going to descend and stand right on top of the Mount of Olives again. Let's go a layer deeper. So if you're ever there on the Mount of Olives is east of the Temple Mount. So in Ezekiel 43, it's one of the passages that Jewish people for millennia have been like, that's a messianic prophecy. Listen really close, bro. This is insane. Then the man brought me back to the outer gate of the sanctuary, the one facing the east, and it was shut. It is to remain shut because the Lord, the God of Israel, has entered through it. And when it says has entered through it, this is prophetic foreshortening, talking about a future event as if it were in the past. This right here is the East Gate as seen from when you're standing on the Mount of Olives. That's literally what you're looking at right there, East Gate right there. Now, you look at it, you're like, where's the gate, bro? Because it's all bricked up. The guy's name was Sultan Suleiman. He conquered Jerusalem in 1517. The Islamic guy had fear of the future Messiah coming and this specific prophecy, and he's the dude that bricked up the East Gate because he was going, I'm gonna make sure that prophecy can never get fulfilled. Okay, now check this out. Zechariah 14:3-5. His feet shall stand upon the Mount of Olives, which faces Jerusalem on the east, and the Mount of Olives shall be split in two from east to west, making a large valley. Half of the mountain shall move to the north and half of it to the south. In 1964, look this up. There's a million news stories about this. These Jewish dudes want to build a hotel on the top of the Mount of Olives. They've got to get a geological survey done before they build on the top of a historic mountain. When they do the geological survey, they discover that there is a fault line that runs right underneath the Mount of Olives. It is an east to west fault line that runs right from the top of the Mount of Olives right to the east gate. When Jesus returns, he'll descend on that mountain, and I think what's going to happen is the Bible talks about the earth and the heavens being shaken. I think that in fulfillment of this prophecy, that whole valley will just do this. All those stones that dude put in front of that thing are going to fall right down. Yeah. And he's going to walk right through that thing, stand on that Temple Mount and be like, where are you at now?
Ooh. Jesus is seriously so cool. Man, do I love my God?
I would advise you to have a look at it. She and her spokeswoman, they put the gold on a table, bind it, and then with a scalpel, they start to the face. Oh my God. And you hear this child screaming, and they take off, and Hillary puts it on her face and goes to the child. You see, the child is all flesh, and then the eyes fall, and this child sees her own face on the face of. I will never forget that image, and I never the scream.
See that woman? She's talking all about the same video that I posted on my profile not too long ago. She's talking about Schumer and Hillary and what they did and how it was recorded and how people, if they know where to go or they're connected with people who know where to go, they can actually view this themselves and they get to see the disturbing and horrible things that were committed on that video recording. When I say that I've seen things like this, I don't make it up. It's not because I want to see these things, it's because people need to see these things so that we can talk about it and expose it. It has to be spoken about and it has to be exposed. People like me and this woman, we don't just make up all of the same details because that's what's happened here. She's just explained everything that I was explaining too in my video. It's not just by coincidence, guys.
Has the FBI seen it?
This is ancient Jerusalem, and this is where one of the most highly debated events in history took place, the resurrection of Jesus. From here, Jesus made 7 appearances on earth before ascending into heaven from the Mount of Olives. Many scholars believe these 7 appearances actually prove the resurrection of Jesus was a true historical event. Let's examine each one to find out why, starting with Jesus' first appearance to a woman who used to be possessed by demons. When it was still dark, Mary Magdalene made the lonely journey to the tomb, and trailing behind her was a small group of women also going to the tomb to anoint Jesus' dead body with spices. Mary probably passed this area here, the place Jesus was executed. She would have remembered that only a few days prior, she saw Jesus beaten and mocked. put on trial as the crowds chanted, "Crucify him," and finally nailed to a piece of wood while Roman guards gambled for the clothes off his naked body before he breathed his last. But when she got to Jesus' tomb, he wasn't there. Just two strange men sitting inside. Tears flooded her eyes because the man who had saved her from her demons was not only dead, he was missing. The men asked why she was crying, so she told them that someone must have stolen the body. But when she turned around, Jesus was standing in front of her, and he also asked her, "Why are you crying?" Mary must have been crying pretty hard because she wasn't able to recognize him until he spoke her name, Mary. Immediately, she was overjoyed. Jesus was alive, and she had to go tell the rest of the disciples. As she was leaving, the other women arrived and also couldn't believe their eyes and ran to tell the disciples too. But the disciples didn't believe them. I mean, why would they? At the time, a woman's testimony was useless. It didn't even count in a Jewish court of law, regardless of how many women came forward to testify. This is interesting because if someone just made up the story of Jesus' resurrection, why would they choose to have a former demon-possessed woman be the first person Jesus appeared to? If someone was trying to fabricate this account, this isn't the story that they would have come up with. But this is just a tiny piece of evidence that maybe the resurrection of Jesus wasn't just a made-up story. But when you learn about these other 6 appearances, I think you'll be shocked at the evidence. When Jesus' closest disciples, Peter and John, heard Mary's story, they ran to the tomb and also found it empty. But Jesus wasn't there. He was about to make his second appearance to a couple of guys traveling from Jerusalem to a nearby village, on this 7-mile road here. What Mary and the women had seen must have spread like wildfire, because in the same day, these guys already knew that the tomb was empty. The truth is that the tomb was in a public place where anybody could go and see for themselves if Jesus was there or not. Only a few days prior, this tomb was shut with 2 Roman guards defending it, in case anyone wanted to fake a miracle. At the time, the punishment for these Roman guards failing to do their job was death. So when an angel came to roll away the stone and Jesus' body was nowhere to be found, these guards didn't go to Pontius Pilate, their commanding officer. They went to the Jewish leaders, hoping they wouldn't rat them out to their Roman overseers. But because these Jewish leaders were still jealous of Jesus, they paid the guards to lie and say that the disciples had stolen the body. And this rumor has even spread to this day. But if the disciples were making up this story, doesn't it seem odd that they would not only have Jesus appear to women first, but then have him appear to 2 random guys outside of Jerusalem? I mean, if I were inventing this story, I'd have Jesus show up to me first to show how important I am, especially if I was trying to become the leader of a new religion. Just like Mary, these 2 guys didn't realize that Jesus was Jesus either until they arrived to their home in Emmaus. It's here that Jesus revealed his true identity and then in an instant disappeared. These 2 guys were so blown away that they immediately retraced their steps all the way back to Jerusalem to tell Jesus' disciples what they just saw. But as they did, Jesus appeared in the room. But the disciples still didn't believe, even though they could see him with their own eyes. They thought that they were seeing a ghost. So the Bible says that Jesus rebuked their unbelief and hardness of heart. It wasn't until they felt Jesus' hands and saw Jesus eat some fish that they started to believe he was real. This was his 3rd appearance at this point, but a few days later, Jesus made his 4th appearance, again to the disciples, because one of them named Thomas wasn't there the first time. And because Thomas didn't physically see Jesus, he didn't believe that his fellow disciples actually saw him. So Jesus appeared to Thomas too, and then Thomas believed. Okay, so if the disciples are just making up this story about the resurrection, they're making themselves look pretty bad so far.
This is not debatable. There are over 500 eyewitness accounts of Jesus' resurrection. That is considered a historical fact.
I found this book at the local antique shop yesterday, and it was written in 1926 by Major General Count Sherep Spiridovich. The Secret World Government, or the Hidden Hand, Unrevealed in History, 100 Historical Mysteries Explained. This man is explaining that there is a hidden hand, there is a secret government, and they are of the nature of the individuals who are taking over now, the blues with a J, that they are the ones that have been running society because they made a pact with a god. He calls it Satan, but that's his position. But I want to read to you this very specific this. I have to be careful about what. I really was trying to debate whether to put this on the internet at all, because it could really get me in trouble. But this particular page, I just want you to see this particular part. Where he says right here, he's talking about proof of the existence of this invisible world government, this hidden hand. He says, the world is governed by very different personages from what is imagined by those who are not behind the scenes, i.e., not by kings and ministers. Disraeli said not others, but different, which means not the kings, ministers, or other similar men, but absolutely different, possibly even of a different race. Who they are must be known first of all, and only then can we control them and establish peace, but not before. You know how I'm always saying, I'm calling them creatures and creeps, and I'm saying they're not human. I don't know what they are. And this has been my biggest reason around this I ain't unifying, because I don't know what these things are. This apparently has been known. This has nothing to do with religion. I'm not talking about religion or race. I'm talking about like a species of a soul or something that's on this planet. And that's what he's talking about here. Yeah, he says, Bismarck, the Iron Chancellor, perceived the existence of invisible forces, but could not or did not wish to formulate them, and called them imponderabilia, powers which no one could fathom. I think I saw where you could get this book, like a free PDF, and read it. I didn't try the link, but I did see something come up in my Google search about it, so maybe you can find it and read it. I don't know how available it is to get your hands on, but this is a very valuable book. He says I haven't finished reading yet, but it looks like he's about to tell us why France and Russia went into the War of 1812. He said it was a hidden hand that organized it. He says earlier also that the Civil War was absolutely 100% organized, and nothing about that was organic or true as far as the version of the story that they told. But yes, I recommend, if you could get your hands on this book. If you Google this guy, it's going to say he's racist and anti-semi-truck. But that's because of what he says in this book.
Yeah, you can find it online and download the PDF file if you like.
Spider beings having a lot to do with Vietnam. They were there during Angkor Wat. And what really happened there is that these spider beings came in through the portals and basically dried... They didn't do anything to the river. There was a river going right through the middle of Angkor Wat, but they mind control their victims before they kill them.
Really?
There are only 2 holy angels mentioned in my Bible, but in a Catholic Bible, they can actually name 3, which is curious because they mention this angel named Raphael, who claims that there are a total of 7 holy angels. So I pulled out my study tool because the question is, who even is Raphael? And according to Haven, this all comes from a book named The Book of Tobit, which a humble Protestant like me has never seen before. This story is about a man named Tobit. He ends up going blind because, I kid you not, a bird poops in his eye. Naturally, this made him very depressed, so he asks God to just take his life. But there was a problem. Tobit remembers that he had left money in this place called Media, and since he's blind, he has to send his son Tobias to go and get it. Of course, God sees this and sends an angel to go and help him out. Raphael is told to go with Tobias on his long journey there, except Raphael is an angel, but Tobias doesn't know this. So eventually, when they find this fish, Tobias is strangely told to cut out its heart, liver, and gallbladder. Apparently, this would be used for the deliverance of his father, but also a woman. See, this woman was named Sarah. She had 7 husbands, all pass away because of this demon named Asmodeus. Yet Tobias is told to marry this woman anyways, because he has the power to do an exorcism with these fish organs. He gets rid of this demon by burning the fish organs on some hot coals. He then marries Sarah and retrieves his father's money. And once he returns home, he even heals his father's blindness with the fish's gallbladder, until in an instant, Raphael reveals who he truly is, scaring the crap out of everybody in that room. But this is where it gets super interesting, because apparently, according to Raphael, he is 1 out of 7 holy angels, yet I've only heard of 2, Michael and Gabriel. So now the question is, Who are these 4 lost angels?
There's a video that's been trending all over, and many Christians feel like this video shows exactly what an extreme amount of demonic possession would look like, okay? This is a video of a man that walks into a church, and the cops get called on him for showing some erratic behavior that Christians feel like is what would take place if a demon had walked into a church to cause problems, okay? Let's go ahead and watch this video and react to it. Before we do me a quick favor. Hit that like button for the YouTube algorithm so that this video can reach more people like yourself. I truly appreciate you guys. Let's go ahead and hop in.
Hello, sir. Deputy Roland to the Sheriff's Office. How are you?
I'm alright.
Okay, so what's going on today?
We just need to open this.
Okay. Well, we can't really do that. That's the church's property.
Okay.
What? What's going on there?
Okay, so real quick, if you are someone who is faint when you see things like this take place, I would have some caution watching this because he does a lot of this in this video, this random falling, okay? Some people believe that he could possibly be using some kind of drugs, and I'm going to discuss that a little more,
Yeah,
but
man.
some of the things that are taking place in this video, we can't just 100% rule out that this is a possible demon-possessed man, okay? But let's go ahead and hop back in.
Okay. So how'd you end up here today?
Because I'm Jesus.
Blasphemy.
Do you have some friends around here or something? I mean, for me to help you, you have to talk to me.
Hey man, you can't do that. What is going on here?
Step back. Get back.
Oh, listen.
20 can step up. 616 can get over here.
I mean, tase him, not shoot him. Just
I got
leave
more
him.
people coming. He's on something.
Yeah, he's on drugs. Hey, priest, you better stop praying.
20, how far out are you? Devil. So he's dove a couple, 3 times. He's fell backwards off the thing here. He's on something. Something or other. He ripped the crucifix thing off the top of the thing there.
Drugs are bad.
Yeah, he just went and grabbed one of these things here and kind of came at me a little bit, but I shoved him off, and then he hopped back up there, so. No, I haven't been able to get anything. Anything.
That is just crazy how he goes from flinging himself, falling, that floor.
Yeah, that's a
Stop
hard
being
floor.
a nice person. Stop. I just finished reading the most devastating biography I've ever read. I did not know this about Nikola Tesla. Nikola Tesla, as you guys know, is the creator of everything modern that we have, the light that we have. Every technology that we have today was created by Nikola Tesla. It came out of his mind. What a brilliant man. And I'm reading his biography, and I had to put it down because I just started crying halfway through it, because he died a freaking pauper. He died poor, broke, alone in his hotel by himself with no friends. And he would write copious amount of letters to his mother saying, everyone steals from me. Everyone takes from me. I can't have any money because the money never comes to me. They steal from me. They steal from me. And I don't have the strength to ask for my money back.
This is the last photo taken of Nikola Tesla, one of the greatest inventors of the late 19th and early 20th century. It was taken in early January 1943, just days before he passed away on the 7th of January 1943 at the age of 86. At this point in his life, Tesla was broke and had been living in a hotel in New York. His rent was paid for by his former employer, Westinghouse Electric, and was provided with $125 a month from them. He suffered from poor health, especially from 1937, when he got hit by a taxi in New York and refused to see a doctor, never fully recovering from his injuries. He passed away in his room in the hotel and was found by a maid who entered ignoring a do not disturb sign that was put on the door 2 days earlier.
Man.
His brilliance, his mind lit up the world, but his people-pleasing character destroyed him. The way they described how he was found in that hotel room is so devastating. The Nikola Tesla.
And
here's the truth no one wants to hear. Just because you're a nice guy does not make you a good person.
Ooh.
I want you to hear that again. Just because you're a nice person does not make you a good person. As a matter of fact, I personally think it's selfish to be a nice person, to be a people pleaser, because when you abandon your voice, when you let anyone cross your boundaries, when you let anyone walk all over you, when you let anyone steal from you, when you swallow your truth just to keep peace, you're not serving others, you're robbing them of the real you. A good person is not always affable. I'm not an affable person. If you cross me, I'll be the last person you ever cross in your life, period. But I'm okay with being misunderstood. But I'm a good person. No one can tell me otherwise. I know I'm a good person, but I'm not a nice person. I'm a kind person. A good person is never looking for trouble. Well, maybe sometimes. But a good person know what they stand for, and they know what they stand against at all time. And when life tests them, when people push, when injustice knocks, a good person is not nice. They are firm, they're clear, they're rooted in who they are. So stop trying to be liked. Stop trying to be a nice person. Stop trying to be a people pleaser, and be a good person. A good person isn't always nice. A nice person isn't always good. Be a kind person, be a strong person, have strong boundaries, and don't be Nikola Tesla.
Rome started out as a monarchy. They had kings. They were kind of unhappy with their king. They held a revolution and they kicked out the kings. And one of the guys who played a key role in this was a man named Lucius Junius Brutus. 500 years later, a guy comes along, Julius Caesar, who starts to act like a king. So if you have trouble with kings in Roman society, who are you going to call? Somebody named Brutus. Now, as it happens, there is a guy named Brutus in Roman society at this time who is one of Julius Caesar's best friends, Marcus Junius Brutus. So 500 years after that first Brutus got rid of kings, Julius Caesar starts to act like a king, and literally in the middle of the night, people go to Brutus's house and write graffiti on it that says, "Remember your ancestor." And at that point, he really has no choice. He forms a conspiracy, and on the Ides of March 44 BC, he and 23 other senators take daggers, stick them in Julius Caesar, and kill him for acting like a king. So the way I always pose this to my students is, how many of you would stick a knife in your best friend because of what your great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-grandfather did? We can't imagine murdering our best friend because of what some incredibly distant ancestor did 500 years ago. But to Brutus, there is no choice.
Wasn't Brutus his stepson?
I'm totally convinced witches are real after watching this. Humans should not be able to do this, y'all. How is that possible? He's showing you there's nothing attached to these sticks. These are defying gravity and the laws of physics.
Hey, look at his eye. Oh.
This is some insane witchcraft, man. This guy's either a really good street magician, or he made some kind of pact with the devil and sold his soul to be able to do some of these things. This guy does insane levels of street magic, but it definitely goes beyond just regular card tricks and smaller scale type stuff. But you can go back and watch the video. He definitely didn't seem to have anything attached, no strings attached to these sticks. As always, thank you for watching. Let me know what you think in the comments. Stay weird.
Notice his eye changed when he put, his finger to his temple.
Here's why you should never wake someone during sleep paralysis.
Hey.
A man in the US posted this creepy video. According to him, he woke up in the middle of the night to strange noises, heavy moans or raspy breathing. When he looked at his wife, he was, to put it mildly, shocked. She was lying on her back with her eyes wide open, twitching slightly, like she was trying to move but just couldn't. So he tried to wake her up. He patted her cheeks, shook her by the shoulders, yet she seemed to be in some kind of trance. For anyone who doesn't know, sleep paralysis is a state where a person wakes up, but their body stays completely immobilized. In those moments, the brain is stuck between sleep and reality. And that's when many people start seeing figures in the dark, feeling a presence in the room, or even hearing strange sounds. When his wife finally came to, she could barely speak. She was terrified and said that the whole time she felt a dark figure shaking her by the shoulders and slapping her across the face. Have you ever had sleep paralysis, and what did you feel in that moment? Tell us in the comments.
Rome gets clever this time. They say, okay, Hannibal's different. We're going to take 2 years, raise 2 armies, and send them both out at the same time against Hannibal. And this is the Battle of Cannae, which is one of the most famous battles in history. Hannibal is facing this army of 80,000 Romans about, and he comes up with a strategy called double envelopment, this famous strategy where he basically kind of sucks the Romans in, surrounds them on all sides, and in one afternoon at the Battle of Cannae, Hannibal kills about 60,000 Romans. Now, just to put that in perspective, that's more Romans hacked to death in one afternoon with swords than Americans died in 20 years in Vietnam. So this is bloodshed of an almost unimaginable scale. So now this is Rome's darkest hour. There's that, Nietzsche phrase, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. This is the closest Rome comes to death in the history of the Republic. Hannibal almost kills Rome, but it's not much of a spoiler. Rome's going to survive, and from this point on, they're going to be unbeatable. But this is the crisis. This is the crucible. This is the furnace that Rome passes through. That is the dividing point between when they're one more up-and-coming empire and when they're clearly the dominant power in the Mediterranean.
Are you aware that there were 15? Now let me ask you something. Are you aware that there were 15 other major religions? This is history now.
Okay.
Not conjecture, history. There were 15 major theological religious movements in the world before Christianity that taught exactly the same identical story of a Messiah who came to the earth, who was born in a manger, who died on a cross, who had 12 apostles, who died with a crown of thorns. Are you aware that there were 15 major religions that had the same identical teachings of Christianity? Most people aren't. And I'm very suspect of a 16th religion which is copied off of 15 previous religions, and I am told that this one is the truth. I become very suspect. That's the way I am as a teacher and as a researcher and a writer. I become rather suspect, and I tell you something else I'm very suspect, and that is the connection between government and politics today in America. I think both should be investigated. And that's what this book attempts to do. Look behind the scenes of both our authorities in the world, religion, politics, and money. Our country is in trouble. Our families are in trouble. Our whole human race is in trouble. And basically we can boil it down to 3 problems we all share on this earth in common: religion, politics, and money. And I'm telling you the 3 are not separate, they are all one.
Forget about religions. Have relationship with Christ.
You have to believe me, okay? In fact, there are, I think, 5 different possibilities as to what happened. Okay? The footage looks fake. So how to explain this? Well, the first explanation is it's real footage, and we should just believe the government, okay? But we also need to believe that they lost all the footage, lost all the technology, lost all the data. Okay? That's possibility number 1. Just believe what the government tells you. Possibility number 2 is America went to the moon, but the astronauts discovered too many secrets on the moon. Like there are space aliens on the moon. They can't tell us, so they create this fake footage, okay? That's the second possibility. Third possibility is America went to the moon, but because of the lighting, because of the difficulty of filming, they couldn't actually take any footage. So they made it up to please the American people, okay? The fourth possibility is America went to the moon, but NASA decided to create this fake footage to fool the Soviets, right? Because if it's real footage, the first Soviets might be able to copy the technology, so we should just fake this thing and make fun of the Soviets, okay? Let's fool the Soviets. So the Soviets could not reverse engineer the success. Okay? That's also a possibility, right? And the last possibility, of course, is America didn't go to the moon. And it's entirely your choice which possibility to believe, okay? I'm just proposing different possibilities out there. So how can we know the truth? Well, we can use game theory to logically deduce what happened. Okay, so let's use game theory.
If we made it to the moon 70 years ago, Why have we never went back?
This happened just yesterday, in the early hours of the morning. A truck driver had a woman sitting beside him, but that woman wasn't human.
¿De qué habla? Voy solo, no juegue así.
It was around 2 a.m. when Juan, a long-haul trucker, was driving alone on the Saltillo-Monterrey highway. The road is known for its sharp curves, thick fog, and countless accidents. Years ago, a young woman died there in a crash. Locals still call her the ghost of Saltillo. That night, Juan's dash cam was recording, and he was also on a video call with a fellow driver. On the screen, everything looked normal. Juan was alone, the road completely dark except for his headlights. Then, his friend's face changed. He froze and said he could see a woman sitting in Juan's passenger seat. Juan turned confused, but the seat was empty. Moments later, the temperature inside the truck began to drop. The windows fogged up, and the sound of the wind started to whisper. Suddenly, the video feed glitched. Static, a scream, and then black. When Juan reviewed the footage later, at exactly 2:13 a.m., the passenger door slowly opened by itself, and a pale hand reached inside. They say it was La Muerta de Saltillo, the ghost who appears every year on that same stretch of road, looking for a driver kind enough to take her home.
No way. Okay, so this is actually crazy, but before I show you that, this is Plaza Colón. Colón is Cristobal Colón, Christopher Columbus. This is an entire plaza to him. And there's actually a huge monument to him right there. That used to be where that lady is. But this is the monument, okay? It's these 3 giant blocks. Really, it's 4, but it's the 3 stages of discovery. The first stage are the prophecies. You can see Seneca, who was born in modern-day Spain, by the way, prophesizing about how awesome it would be if we could conquer a fear of the ocean and discover his words, El Nuevo Mundo, the new world. He knew there could be something beyond the sea. We never went beyond that. It'd be like today discovering what's beyond Antarctica. You know, there was an Austrian painter that talked about, no, that's fine. Okay, so this one is the Genesis, okay? So this is like the start of the voyage. He gets funded. He's like, all right, let's go on this ship. Let's get there. And it's all engraved here. You have the names of some of the crew members actually engraved onto the stones. And then finally, you have this piece right here, which is Christopher Columbus, his arrival. Really happy days, right? This is supposed to represent the ocean. Okay, massive flag, by the way. Super patriotic when it's flying. You can smoke really good cigars up there, by the way. Okay, this. What is this? Let's approach. All right, so this plaza was constructed in 1977 en presencia de Su Majestad el Rey Don Carlos I, in the presence of the king and all these leaders from the Americas. Venezuela, Nicaragua, Argentina, Guatemala, they all came here and they did something really cool because they're not woke in 1977. They knew this was a massive win for humanity. No more human sacrifices. Okay, let's not get into that. So what they did was really cool. Each of them brought some dirt from their home countries and they deposited it here together so that it could show solidarity because they're thanking Spain for their efforts for the discovery of the Americas and for the Union. You know, they say that Hispanidad es la mayor obra de hermandad del mundo. It is Spanishness. It's the biggest project in brotherhood and fraternity in the world. So the English have really good PR, so they don't get as much flack for their genocide, right? The Spanish get this really bad reputation for it. But if you really look at it, how many English interbred with the locals, with the indigenous? I lived in the Americas. There's not many people with indigenous DNA. The Spanish will breed with anything. No. But really, if we look at it, we have brothers in blood all across the world. You want a Spanish Asian, Filipinas. You want a Spanish black, Cuba, La República Dominicana, tal. We're everywhere, right? And so this is a project in that brotherhood, in La Hispanidad. And we're saying thank you to that man's right there. ¿Dónde estás? Cristobal Colón. Gracias, Cristobal. Gran crack.
Spanish brotherhood. Let's keep it real. Let's call it colonialism.
Rome is undisputably the most powerful force in the Mediterranean world. And having conquered the West, they're now going to turn to the East, which is the Greek world. And the Greek world is older, it's richer, it's culturally more sophisticated. It's the world left by Alexander the Great that's ruled by the descendants of his generals. And the Greeks kind of view themselves as superior to the Romans. I mean, to the Greeks, the Romans are these uncouth, sort of savage barbarians. But they're going to get a real shock because the Romans Roman army now has gotten really good to beat Hannibal, and when they go east, they're going to just defeat the Greeks relatively easily, one after the other. There's a famous historian named Polybius, who is a Greek whose city was captured by the Romans, and he writes a history of Rome. And his motivation for writing this is, he says at the beginning of this book, he says, surely there can be no one so incurious as to not want to understand how the Romans could have conquered the entire Greek world in 53 years, because that seems unimaginable to him. So he's writing this entire history as a way to try and understand, how did the Romans do it? We were these wonderful, superior people, and they came around in 50 years, bang, that's the end of us.
Observation on a quantum level is what turns energy to matter. So energy is known as the wave, and physical reality is known as the particle. So what turns wave to particle is an observer. You and I.
Mm-hmm.
Or a camera, anything that's measuring something. And that, in quantum mechanics, is called collapse of the wave function. The question is, though, where's your observation? Most people's observation is rooted in lack.
Yes.
Or wanting.
Wanting energy. Mm.
So people might be listening to this going, I just want my life to change. I wish I just had more money. I'll never get out of this job. Good things don't happen to me. I'll be single forever. If the unifying field turns from energy to matter through observation, and people are observing their reality from that lens, why don't they get what they want? And that's because the unifying field is a mirror. It's as simple as that. If you were to stand in front of an actual physical mirror,
yes,
and stare into it with a sad face and go, I just want to see a smile.
Yes.
You know that you'll only ever see a smile the moment you smile.
That is supposed to be me, Hertz. What did I ever do to you that you would draw that picture of me?
Everything.
Super times for all. No danger about it. In fact, let me tell you, if you don't work in a hospital, you really are missing something. In fact, you're missing everything.
Investigations revealed decades of abuse. Over 400 victims came forward, with ages ranging as young as 5. Let me know your thoughts and comments below.
The guy was protected by the royal family.
That the sigils are not just on the skin, Tony. They're under the skin. I have a handprint of an entity pushing its way through the skin. It's not the top part of the hand. It's the inside of the hand. And it's pushing its way through the body.
But you have a picture
I
of
have
this?
a picture of it. I'll show it to you after the show. Absolutely. Now, the second thing I want to make sure everybody understands is this, that these archetypes that the phenomenon masquerades as, they are not real in and of themselves. So the same alien that is placing sigils on skin today was the same demon placing sigils on skin yesterday. Aleister Crowley came out and said, today they will be called demons and angels. Tomorrow they'll be called something else. Now, here's the game changer. Recently, I discovered a quote from the heir of Thelema that Crowley mentored. His name's Kenneth Grant.
Mm.
Kenneth Grant, in his book, one of his books, he talks about today that they'll be called extraterrestrial and not angels and demons. And here we go. He said they'll want worship, but they'll be extraterrestrial. And here's the most important part. He said, and by the way, we have their sigils. We have their sigils. Thelema has their sigils. So what that did was it kind of took all the research I and others have been doing and put it in line and said, even the occultists know they're not extraterrestrial. There's something deeper and darker out there that's trying to manipulate our species. Yep. And so what I have is a collection of sigils underneath the skin. Okay. Can I go on a little bit further on this?
Please.
So the purpose of a sigil in the occult is to basically carve the pictorial signature. Here we go. Not of a demon, of a practitioner. Okay. The forefather and grandfather of sigilization is Austin Osman Spar. He was an occultist. His philosophy was that when a practitioner can carve his symbols or their symbols into something or someone, they project their intentions into that signature of theirs. And in that ritual, they will determine the effects it will have on that experiencer.
He's right. They're not extraterrestrial. They're, how you say it? They're multi-dimensional.
An individual whose father was a remote viewer. He said that his father was taken by these beings. And he would go in out-of-body states and all kinds of really, really wild stuff. He said, my dad believed they were his guides. He would do sessions. He would come back into his body and he would call up. He's like, I watched all the time. He'd call up a local politician. Hey, Don, how's your campaign going? I know your election's up here in a week. I want you to focus on this part of, the area, not this, focus on them. They're going to give you more votes. And they would pay him tens of thousands of dollars to do it. He would talk to athletes. Don't sign this contract. Who told you? My guides. That was the kind of relationship with the phenomenon he had. So I'm on the phone with this individual and he is freaking out. He goes, Nathaniel, I've never heard anybody talk about this. I said, well, tell me what your experience was. He said, he went through the whole story with his father. He said, one day, Tony, he said, my father comes stumbling down the stairs. He's white as a ghost. He's holding his chest and he's crying. And he said, I knew he just got back from a session, but something went very, very wrong. He said, I'm trying to get him out of this stupor. He said, but all of a sudden he just passes out, has a massive heart attack. So his father is incapacitated. And when the EMS gets there, they start doing compression on him. They have his shirt off. I have pictures of this too. And as they're working on him, they stop because they see these burns from underneath his skin, Tony. They're forcing their way subdermally to the surface.
Jeez.
That's what we're dealing with. The first thing they see is the Star of David. People are going to say it's something else. We'll just, okay, whatever. Star of David. Then there's the cross. And then there is an overarching Egyptian hieroglyphic forcing its way to the surface. It's called chaos magic, by the way. So we know it's not an accident. These were sorcerers. They're performing sigilization.
So you're saying what that experience isn't even an entity as much as a practitioner.
Yes. That's the correct model, my friend. Whoa. Even incubi entities. If you look at the literature, Sinister Avamino was going into homes within an hour of the phenomenon, materializing secretions on hybrid mothers. Secretions. And when they peeled back their eyelids, they had sigils under their eyelids, Tony.
Whoa.
That is what we're talking about. The phenomenon. These are practitioners. And that has been the longest argument in demonology. Is it a demon or is it a practitioner? They could never determine.
We are living in the Simpsons movie and it's biblical. This is going to be hands down my craziest video I've ever made. And if you've seen any of my stuff, you know that that is a wild claim in itself. I think that everybody should watch this. Before we get started, I need to show you one of my first videos where I did the math for Solomon's Temple because it's important to this. I started looking at pi and you're basically just measuring a circle. I just stared at this image for a few minutes and then the Bible verse popped into my head about looking over the circle of the earth. The more I looked at what pi actually is, I found out that you can't really create a dome or an arch in architecture without using pi. So then I started to think, are they measuring the firmament with pi? And then for some reason I kept thinking of Nikola Tesla's 369. So in Kings 7:23, it says, then he made the sea, I think this is the waters above, of cast metal. It was round 10 cubits from brim to brim and 5 cubits high and a line of 30 cubits measured in circumference. So I started plugging numbers into pi to see if these work. For a circle with a radius of 10 units, when you replace pi with 3.33, it converts to 66.6. So the biblical value of pi as derived from 1 Kings 7:23 and 2 Chronicles 4:2 appears to be an approximation of 3, but some interpretations suggest it might imply a slightly more precise value, such as 3.3 repeating. So it says the verse doesn't account for the basin's thickness. If the measurement of 10 cubits refers to the outer diameter and the circumference of 30 cubits refers to the inner circumference, the true ratio would increase slightly. The hemisphere would come out to 999. Keep in mind this is what a hemisphere actually is. So then I asked it to create an image of a geodesic dome over a flat earth model, utilizing 3.33 repeating as pi. Guys, my mind is shook. It has the sacred hex. So now we know that Solomon's Temple was a hexagonal geodesic dome that looked something like this. You guys remember Chicken Little, where the sky was made of hexagons and it fell and it was like a hoverboard, and when the sky broke apart it was actually like alien spacecrafts? And I know I can't be the only one that keeps seeing people post sky hexagon pictures and videos on social media. So Solomon created a geodesic 369 dome. So Trump is making his own dome, and this would be because God hammers out the sky like molten metal. In the Simpsons movie, there's a secret dome that's carried in by drones. I've been talking nonstop about how the Whore of Babylon is going to pretend to be Mary, and that we're coming up on a 500th anniversary of a Marian apparition, and I believe that this is what Revelation 12 is all about. She stands with the moon under her feet. Well, in Matthew 12, it says, "The queen of the south will rise up at the judgment with this generation and condemn it, for she came from the ends of the earth to hear the wisdom of Solomon, and behold, something greater than Solomon is here." Well, she came to Solomon to question him when he built his temple. And in the Simpsons movie, she comes when they put the dome over them. Happy birthday, Mary. Okay.
Look up the encyclopedia from 1958 that speaks of the coordinates of the dome.
Okay, listen, this one's going to make you look at money differently. Take a dollar bill, just one, and actually study it. You'll see pyramids, eyes, suns, numbers, even Latin phrases that nobody bothers to translate. They call it just design. I call it a code. Now think, why would America, a so-called modern nation, print ancient Egyptian imagery on its currency? Why a pyramid? Why an all-seeing eye hovering above it? That's not democracy. That's a temple symbol. Every ancient empire left hidden markers, priests, rulers, secret societies. They carved their authority into stone with symbols. Today, they carve it into your money. Same ritual, new medium. And here's where it gets darker. The numbers on the bill, they're not random. Some repeat sacred geometry patterns used in temples thousands of years ago. Circles, 13s, 7s, cosmic numbers. You think it's coincidence that 13 steps climb that pyramid? That 1776 is written in Roman numerals at its base? That's not patriotism. That's a ritual date. So the question isn't why the symbols are there. The question is, who are they speaking to? Because it's not us. It's a language for the ones who built the system, the keepers of an ancient order that never died.
I just seen a video of a woman saying, what if slavery was a part of one big 400+ year contract, and that the Africans and the slaves were literally just the sacrifices that they needed, that the founding fathers basically went to a deity and they needed black Africans to basically be the sacrifice.
What?
And I have
That's
never
crazy.
been more intrigued in something. Nothing has made more sense to me than that video, and I most definitely will be tagging this creator below because she is amazing. But yeah, she said she feels like slavery was a part of this contract. Like I said, 400+ year contract. And if you think about it, it just makes so much sense. And it was almost in a way like they were harvesting our energy. They needed our blood. They needed our fear to fuel them and make them be on top. And then I seen a lot of people go into details about how, like, they always want to call Haiti so evil, demonic, because they do voodoo and practice all these different dark magic. But that's because Haiti was the only place that actually still had their freedom, and they used their magic, their spirituality to win. Like, these people were literally using their magic and their spirituality to win. These French people was basically like melting. They were having these people teeth fall out. It was crazy. They were bringing them back up and making them shoot each other. Like, it was crazy. But that's why they try to demonize Haiti so bad, because they used their magic. But all along, they've been using magic. And it just gets deeper and deeper if you really do think about it. I seen someone in the comments mention how Oscarville, which was where Lake Lanier was, it used to be a black, predominantly black, thriving community that had racetracks, everything. Everybody was business owners. And what do? They go over there and make it into a lake. And it's like, now the veil is so thin now because that contract is up, and they're trying to do everything to take us back to where they were so they can still dominate. And it's like, look at the people that they took on the transatlantic slave trade. The people that was more in touch with their ancestors, their spirituality. They took us Like even the Native Americans, if you think about it like that. Then I seen another video of a woman that did a take on this as well. And she was like, just think of the rise of how America came up so fast, even though there was other nations that been here long, long before America that literally was nowhere near at how fast America grew. All because of this contract that actually was successful, but not for long. But it just makes so much sense why the U.S. was just ahead of everything. Like they've been in cahoots with so many more higher ups forever. All for power. But like I said, I'm going to tag this creator down below because that was so, like nothing never made so much sense to me in my life. This is all fun theories and just thoughts. This is not something literal, but it's just a fruit for thought because I never thought about it like that, but it makes so much sense. Let me know what y'all think in the comments.
But why black people specifically though? Anyone?
This pedophile couple in Germany sold their son to be abused by pedophiles, and let me tell you, this story is incredibly disturbing. The two people that formed this couple were known as Baron T and Christian L, and they lived in the town of Staufen in southwest Germany. In late 2017, the police received a tip-off and they immediately began investigating this ring, which led them to Baron and Christian. Now, German authorities always cover up the faces and identities of those who are accused and convicted for some reason, but I did manage to find real photos of them to help expose them and raise awareness. So Christian, the man in the couple, actually had 2 previous convictions for child-related crimes, one for possession of child pornography, and another for sexually abusing a 13-year-old girl. And eventually it was found out that Baron, the mother, actually allowed Christian to molest their child so that he wouldn't leave her, he wouldn't break up with her. But apparently somewhere along the way, Christian wasn't just happy with molesting his own children, he wanted to make some money off of it. And so the couple then not only started producing their own CSAM CP videos to be sold on the dark web featuring their kid, but they also started connecting with local and foreign pedophiles on the dark web and allowing them to rent their child for an evening. Yes, they literally sold their child to pedophiles to be molested. Now, you would imagine that for selling a child to pedophiles, the child that you're supposed to be watching over, and for molesting that child repeatedly over and over again, and also filming that molestation and posting it on the dark web for other pedophiles to enjoy, you would imagine that these people would get lengthy prison sentences, right? Well, no. They both received about 12 years in prison for these crimes. Interestingly, Baron, the mother, actually received 12 and a half years in prison, while Christian, the dad, he received even less. He got 12 years. It also came to light during the trial that they hadn't just abused and sold their 9-year-old son, they also facilitated and participated in the abuse of a 3-year-old girl.
Oh God.
So people ask me what I feel like is wrong with the world today. One of the biggest things that I see consistently is extremely low sentences for pedophiles like this. It just absolutely boils my blood that someone can get convicted and serve a much longer time in prison based on drug charges, a longer sentence for possessing a controlled substance than for molesting a kid repeatedly, filming it, and selling that kid to other pedophiles to molest. Make this make sense, please. If you want to follow me on my journey to expose predators like this, please consider checking out my show, The Conspiracy Files. You can find it on YT or on any podcasting platform.
We need a Dexter Morgan. Seriously.
You want to get weird? Let's get a little weird. Let's lift the veil a little and compare what we see in the movies to what's going on in real life. And how they seem to hint in the movies what's really going on or what's going to happen. Allegedly. Alright, in my video, we talked about Alfred Seckel here, who was not only the man that helped Jeffrey Epstein hold scientific conferences at Little St. James Island, but he was also in a relationship with this woman, Isabel Maxwell, Ghislaine Maxwell's sister. Well, up until 2015 when they found his body at the bottom of a cliff that was half eaten by wild boars. Now remember, Alfred was smart. He was a cognitive neuroscientist. He gave speeches at Harvard, MIT, Cornell. But what he's known for is being an optical illusionist. He studied the science of visual perception. At one point, he was acknowledged as the world's leading authority on illusions. He was actually nicknamed the Illusionist because of all the work that he did. Now, I told you in the original video that there's a movie out there with the same name that you should check out. And that's this one, The Illusionist, that came out in 2006. It took place in the early 1900s, Vienna, and the main character was a magician that they said had mystical powers. And that power was to be able to conjure the soul of people that passed away. He would conjure up an apparition of these people on stage and let the audience ask him questions like how did they pass and where they're at now. And if you really think about it, that's just like scientists being able to read our inner thoughts. Now remember, these scientific conferences that Epstein was throwing at Little St. James Island after he was convicted were full of some of the smartest people in the world. Astrophysicists, jet propulsionists, surgical robotic engineers, celebrated professors from universities all over the place, even scientists from CERN. Just the kind of people that would develop the technology to be able to listen to our inner thoughts and read them out loud. Or have something else read them out loud. Alright, now in the movie, the main character's true love was taken out by a very important person. Now naturally, he was threatened with all kinds of things if he brought an apparition of her back on stage so people could figure out what happened. And of course, he did it anyway. Now, in the end, it turned out that these things were a trick. The apparitions were an illusion, and they faked the people passing. Now, think about that. With all the artificial intelligence, drones, and all the other things that have been discovered that actually trick the mind as well as your eyes. Some things just don't seem so unrealistic anymore. Especially when we got people like Elon Musk saying we're not too far off from being able to download our thoughts, memories, and everything else to robots. And when you think about it like that, it really makes you wonder. Y'all stay safe.
Yeah. I feel like Epstein is still alive.
Did you know that a pizza delivery driver once stumbled into a cannibalism ring where wealthy elites paid $50,000 to eat human flesh? In 1989, college student Paul Henderson was making his usual delivery run through Denver's upscale neighborhoods. He knocked on the door of what seemed like an elegant dinner party, well-dressed guests chatting over wine, but as he entered the kitchen, something felt wrong. The chef was preparing what he called exotic meat with unusual precision. Henderson overheard guests discussing the menu using strange terms about cuts and preparation methods. Then he saw the basement, human remains hanging like livestock in a professional butchering operation. Upstairs, guests were paying premium prices based on the victim's age and health condition. The chef announced the main course as young adult tenderloin, while describing how the meat had been aged for optimal flavor. Henderson watched in terror as they consumed human flesh, discussing the victim's background like wine tasters. His testimony led to 31 arrests, including politicians and doctors. The investigation revealed similar networks in 4 other major cities.
So what did they order pizza?
Here's what can happen to you if you decide to eat wild honey. These people ate just 1 spoonful too many, and what happened to them next is something they'll remember for the rest of their lives. Wild honey is also called mad honey, and it's produced in only one country, Nepal. Every day, dozens of locals climb up to 5,000 meters into the mountains to collect it, and the harvesting process is just as risky as the honey itself. They hang over cliffs with almost no safety gear, all while being stung by hundreds of wild bees. But why do they take such risks? Because this honey is incredibly expensive, costing $6,000 for a small jar. And even that's enough. Just 1 spoonful can cause hallucinations, loss of control, and unconsciousness. Some tourists, unaware of this, ate an entire jar at once, and then went completely insane, or even fell into a coma for several days.
Why? Why you gotta eat the whole jar?
Do you know who the angel was that stayed by Jesus' side when he was bound to the cross and faced his trial? According to the scriptures, that night heaven and earth fell silent, the winds ceased, and even the stars dimmed their light. In the Garden of Gethsemane, before he was arrested, Jesus knelt alone on the ground. His body trembled, and drops of blood and sweat fell to the earth, not from fear, but from the unbearable weight of humanity's sin. He lifted his eyes toward heaven and prayed with a trembling voice, "Father, if it is possible, let this cup pass from me, yet not my will, but yours be done." And in that moment, the entire universe seemed to hold its breath. Then, a light descended from heaven. An angel appeared before him, carrying no sword, no thunder, no crown of glory. He did not stop Judas's betrayal, nor did he remove the cross from Jesus's path. He simply knelt beside the Savior, offering divine tenderness and the strength to endure what was to come. He did not come to spare Jesus from suffering, but to give him the power to complete his mission of redemption. That night, Jesus still walked toward the cross, but he was no longer alone, for the kingdom of heaven was with him. And perhaps that is the deepest truth of faith. God may not always shield you from pain, but he will send an angel to stand beside you in your loneliest hour. Maybe, just maybe, that angel is standing next to you right now.
Thank you, Jesus, for carrying my sins.
He's got a bloody good point. Check this lad out.
Digital IDs are way worse and way more dangerous than you could imagine. I am a software developer, okay, and I'm going to give you some software reasons why this is so much more dangerous than the things you already know, okay? Please, please, please watch this the whole way through. Share, like, comment, share it with everyone. Everyone needs to know this because they need to know what they are opposing, okay? The first thing I want to say is to everyone saying it's only used for right to work, go on the World Economic Forum's website where they've got the digital ID up and it's like a picture with like 10 things around it about what they're going to use it for, okay? So first off, that reason's out. Here's the technical reasons of why it's so dangerous. Now, we already know about social credit score, we already know about carbon footprint, all these things that it could be, okay? But here's two technical things that are going on with the digital ID that you need to know, okay? Apple's safety and privacy on their phones has been one of their main selling points, and they've never laid down to any government when they've asked for access. Even when the police would arrest someone with an iPhone, they would struggle to break in because of Apple's advanced security features. That's the official name, okay? End-to-end encryption. Are you following, okay? The UK have now somehow made it that in the last couple of weeks that Apple have now to disable that on all UK phones. So if you have a phone in the UK and it's an iPhone, you will notice in your privacy settings that you will not have the ability to turn that feature on anymore. You won't even have the feature, okay? Because the government have now made them turn it off, right? The reason so that they can have access to what they deem as a national threat, okay? Whatever that means. The second thing, right? There's a thing right now called chat control, which a lot of people are fighting against right now, okay? Chat control is basically where there's like an AI or an LLM based on your device, a piece of software, right, that tracks every stroke of your keyboard, right? Every time you press something, whether it's in Snapchat, whether it's in messages, whether it's in notes, whether it's in WhatsApp, whether it's in like your private journal app, right? It collects this data and then it will categorize you. And who does that does what with the categorization? It gets sent off to, you guessed it, whoever it is, the servers, the government, the World Economic Forum, the evil people at the top of that, right? They will then categorize you in something by surveilling you like this. People do not understand this chat control thing, and with Apple's thing happening there, all in the UK, right, how serious and how dangerous this surveillance thing is. It's way beyond carbon footprint, it's way beyond social credit score. This is so deep, and they need the first domino to fall, which is to get this digital ID out there and for people to be on it. So I'm asking you, please share this video. People need to know so they know what they need to reject, okay? Please, please, please share this.
That's got to be worth a follow at the very least. He knows what he's on about.
Get a cheap second phone that, you don't care about. Get a digital ID on that and leave it on your sock drawer.
You look at the group of people who meet through the BIS.
What's that?
BIS is the Bank of International Settlements, and it's the central bank of central banks.
Where is that located?
It's in Basel, Switzerland. It has 63 of the most powerful central banks as its members, and the New York Fed and the Fed are both shareholders. They became shareholders in 1994.
In one sentence, what's the purpose of the Bank of International Settlements?
Okay, so there are two things you need to know about the Bank of International Settlements.
I'm not sure my brain's big enough for this, but keep going.
It is.
Okay.
It has sovereign immunity.
What does that mean?
It's above the law.
It's its own country.
Right. It's its own country. It has its own police force. And essentially, other than one of its staff being in a car accident or, minor things, no one has the legal authority to move against it. Number two, it can move money and hold it on its on its balance sheet and manage money secretly. If I want to steal 21 trillion, from the U.S. government and park it on the balance sheet of the BIS. It can move it anywhere in the world, and it can keep it on its balance sheet secretly.
First of all, where does its power? Like, who empowered it to have sovereign immunity in the right?
It was created after World War I, sort of collected its powers and got going in the 30s. And it was created in theory to manage the reparations of the German government. But if you read the real history, it was because the Bank of England and the central bankers wanted an entity that had sovereign immunity.
So the bankers has more power than any country?
You ever notice how something strange happened with wealth over time? The first billionaire appeared in 1916, Rockefeller. Then for almost 100 years, only 10 others joined that list. But in just the last few decades, that number exploded to 3,000. You see how odd that is? A century of slow growth. Then suddenly it multiplies overnight. People say it's because of technology, but think about it. Technology didn't just connect people, it connected profits. A businessman in one city can now make money off someone's phone halfway across the planet. It's not even about selling products anymore, it's about owning systems, the invisible pipelines where money flows. Back in 2004, billionaires donated around $13 million to politicians. 20 years later, that number jumped to $3 billion. That's not influence anymore. That's partnership. Policies don't serve citizens, they serve the wealthy, and every economic crisis somehow makes them richer. Look closer. Each ideology promises equality or freedom, but they all end up in the same place. A small circle of people owning everything that matters. Land, media, energy, currency. They just change the name of the game. Capitalism, socialism, democracy, it doesn't matter. Different flags, same board. And now we've reached the age of centi-billionaires, people with over $100 billion, as if it's some kind of cosmic race to own reality itself. But here's the weird part. No one ever asked why now. Why did wealth suddenly accelerate right when data became the new gold? Maybe the economy didn't evolve. Maybe it mutated into something that feeds on everyone quietly, efficiently, endlessly.
Well, they invented money and also printed. We are the one who give it value.
This is just a theory, not a fact. Now, I've seen some Tartarian buildings in my time, but this one? Oh, this is the Alexandra Palace in London. Brother, wait till you see what's inside. Anytime you're dealing with lions, you're dealing with the Tartarians and the Moors, brother. I mean, come on. I don't think you guys understand the size of this building and how much this building is out of place. So for the people that have seen buildings like the Taj Mahal and them things there, this is similar because we are actually elevated. I don't think you know. We're in London and we're like bigger than, higher than everything. And underneath this, there's a whole structure. They just locked off the doors. Trust me, there's more to show you. Oh, so that one there, that's locked off. Can't get to there. Got gates. Excuse me, mate. You can't get to that one there. Huh? You can't get to that building there.
No, you can't.
That one locked off, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay, cheers. Alright, let's see if we can go inside and see what's really there. Before I go inside, people, I just want you to understand, we don't build like this. I mean, look how, like, what is that, a door or window? Look at the side. I mean, sorry though, look at the comparison to this kid. Yeah, look how tall she is. And look at the rest of the building.
Well,
come on, brother.
Her to a building.
This is how we build. You see the wooden bit that they've put around it? That's what we build. We don't build like this. Come on, bruv. Who's putting up lions? I And you see that circle thing, people? There would have been some type of natural energy conducting metal in there, something that we know as a solar panel. And again, that's London. We're higher than London right now. And there's still something underneath us. So for the people that understand the power of the sun and the power of energy, you know that never used to have the glass in there like that. They've repurposed that as well. You know what, I'm gonna have to do a part 2. Cause I ain't even gone inside yet.
So we ran across a video of an ex-witch talking about different things that are actually demonic. Check out some of the things that she said.
Things that are actually demonic from an ex-witch. I see a lot of scaremongering going on in Christianity about so many things being demonic that in my opinion really are not. So as always, from my perspective, my opinion and my life, I'm going to tell you exactly what led me into witchcraft and what you need to stay away from. And believe me, some of these things you'd have no idea about. Absolutely anything that tries to tell your future. Anything. Even if something as stupid as those little 8 balls. Me personally, I started really understanding my gift of future by using tools like playing cards and things like that. If you come across something that tries to tell you what your future is, that is not of God. And actually it's on a mission to deter you from God's plan. Yeah. Alcohol, the biggest one, without a doubt, alcohol. There is a demon named alcohol. This demon talks about the absence of the soul, removing the soul from the body, and then allowing a demon to inhabit the body. Every single time in my past that I had a drink, I would be spiritually attacked to next level. And even my friends as well, you know, if you have a hangover, it's more than just a hangover, isn't it? You literally want to exit the... Alcohol is without a doubt one of the most demonic things on the planet. Could also argue that's why a lot of it is called spirit. Wine I feel slightly different about, obviously, is mentioned in the Bible quite a lot. Anything that leads you to intoxication or that you are not in control of your own body, demonic. This goes for a lot of medications as well. I'm not going to speak too deeply on that because, you know, free speech and all. Anything that makes you feel like you are not in control of your own body, demonic doorway. Forms of thought control, and you'll be surprised at this. Absolutely anything or anyone that tries to prevent you from thinking, asking questions, delving into things. People in charge at the moment, if you catch my drift. The process of cognitive thinking was God-given for a reason. Absolutely anything that tries to stop you thinking or having your own mindset is completely and utterly demonic. That's where cults come from, because everybody has to have the same belief system. You'll notice this is why I go absolutely ham on specific Christians that don't let people ask questions about anything demonic. This one's going to ruffle some feathers, but the generalised school system. I don't need to go into too much detail there, do I? I'm just going to say one word: indoctrination. And also it is a system that completely eradicates actual God gifts and instead breaks and moulds children to become part of a society that we know is functioning from the demonic. Absolutely any film whatsoever that talks about exorcism. When you watch a film that involves any form of demonic inhabitation or exorcism, you are watching that in real time. All you have to do really is look at the history of what happened to the cast of The Exorcist. These sort of movies are not just movies, they are literally playing out the demonic in front of your face. And it absolutely can invoke things into your home, which is why a lot of things happen after watching these sort of films. For me, there is a huge difference between a horror fantasy and actual real life exorcism. Gossip, without a doubt, gossip is one of the most demonic things on the planet. And it is all kick-started from a demon, and it grows and becomes gang stalking. Get yourself away from any kind of position of gossip. Particular music festivals can be harvesting of energy. Travis Scott's one was a perfect example. Any kind of themes of dark, low, red light, you already know. Low vibrational tones, demonic tones. Any kind of music that uses repetition, because this is what witchcraft is, it's repetition. I know a lot of people say this song's demonic. No, you need to pay attention to where something repeats. The same word, the same ideology, the same behaviour. You need to look for the repetition. Obviously, tarot cards, witchcraft, spells, Ouija boards, massive ones. All of these things give a direct gateway to demons. Arguing and fighting, huge gateway. So when I say to you that something isn't demonic, I'm not saying that it's good. Pay attention to how something makes you feel. That is the core under everything. How does it make you feel?
Some very interesting takes. Here's what I took away, and this is something I already knew, but in case you guys didn't, I want to tell you. When somebody tells you something that is not true, but they tell you in a way where you believe it as if it's true, it's a form of witchcraft. Manipulation is a form of witchcraft. So for instance, say you are in a church and whatever you're being taught is not biblical. It may look biblical. They may be using scripture, but it's not biblical. It's out of context. They perverted the scripture for you to believe something that they believe. That's witchcraft. And yes, as she said, that's how many different cults are made. People have no type of mind of their own. It's just this small circle with everyone just boom. And God forbid you leave the circle, nobody knows you anymore. That's a form of witchcraft. I'm glad that different forms of witchcraft and different demonic activity is coming more and more to life for people to see, because that's making them do nothing more than chase God. Amen.
Amen.